Science has a very specific checklist of items used to define life. This checklist includes both properties and activities that living things do. All living things must have these characteristics in order to be considered alive. We'll begin with the properties of life. These are descriptions, things that classify organisms that are alive. The first property of life is having a definite form and limited size. For example, you can look at this organism and tell that it's a squirrel. Here's another squirrel. They're different individuals, each with their own characteristics, but you can still recognize them as being a squirrel, as opposed to this, for example, which is a rabbit. Rabbits have their own characteristics that classify them as rabbits, and squirrels have their own characteristics that characterize them as squirrels. Therefore, they have definite form and limited size. The next characteristic is having a limited lifespan. All things that are alive at some point in time will die, whether it be a plant, an animal, a fungus, or a bacterium. All of them die at some point. The third item is that living things are made of cells. Cells are the basic unit of life. Here you can see plant cells, algal cells, and even human cells. All of them have similar characteristics that allow them to be classified as cells, and we'll talk more about that later. Because all living things are made up of one or more cells, they therefore are also made up of cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the fluid part of the cell. Here it is, shown by the arrow. 70% of the cell is made up of this fluid-like substance called cytoplasm. The next item uses only chemical energy. Anything that's alive must consume energy in some form. Humans have to eat food. So do snakes. So does mold, and even simple organisms like an amoeba. Even plants need to take in energy from the sun, but they use that energy from the sun to create chemical energy in the form of glucose. The next characteristic on the list of properties is adaptation. Organisms are adapted for their environment. This cactus, for example, is adapted to a dry environment. This lizard is adapted by the fact that it has camouflage to blend in with its environment. This helps it to avoid predators. These caterpillars have adaptation to survive in their habitat, and this jelly has adaptations to survive in its habitat. All of these organisms are the result of evolution, thousands and thousands of years of change that is accumulated to make them well suited to their environment. This is a characteristic of all living things.